board, and I want to talk about my battle with chronic fatigue syndrome and how I managed to find some recovery. And I'm basing this in part on a writing exercise that I did back in 2011. And the assignment was to write about a big lesson you've learned in life and give the person you became an Indian name and give the lesson an Indian name. So the person I became was Broken Arrow, and the lesson was just trying too hard. So in the spring of 1986, when I was 19 years of age, I came down with mononucleosis, and I didn't take any time off work. I had a great weekend job. I was the news anchor at K-High Cahill Radio. And I didn't take off any time off school. I had 15 units of college courses at Sierra Community College. I was also the editor of my college newspaper, the Sierra Sun. But life was really tough. I mean, I was so sick. I remember my parents were gone for the first month that I was this sick, and my car broke down, and I had to drag myself from Sierra College to the mechanic and try to find the money to fix the car, and just struggling with all these things really wore on me. And I was particularly feeling low because I'd come from a wonderful week at Pacific Union College where I grew up between age 11 and 14. I lived there then, and then I go back in the summers for a couple of years after that. So I'd had a wonderful week, a wonderful date in late January of 1986, and now I was sick and I was alone, and I was just, so wanted someone to take care of me. And it took me about 3 months to emerge out of mononucleosis. Didn't do very well at school. I had, I think, a B average that semester, and I was just weak. And I took a job in June of 1986, landscaping, and I was outside and I was doing hard physical labor. I was swinging a pick and wielding a shovel digging ditches in the Sacramento sun, which is for 40 days straight, it'd be over 100 degrees. So I built myself back after mono. And so by February of 1988, I was taking 27 units at Sierra Community College. I'd been accepted into UCLA, where I was going to major in economics. And I was also working about 30 hours a week in landscaping. And I was kind of struggling a little bit under this pressure, but I'd struggled before and always broken through. But this time, I woke up in February of 1988 with what felt like a bad case of the flu. It felt very similar to mononucleosis. I spent 2 days in bed, and on the third day, I went back to school and went back to work. There were thousands of plants that I had bought my employer, Doug Hanslick, and I had to transfer them into bigger pots so that they could grow. And as I got back to work, I experienced another relapse. This was weird. I've had colds and flus before, but I don't remember relapsing. And this happened again and again. And so I cut my school schedule in half to 15 units. And I cut back on my work to about 15, 20 hours a week. And I went to got a medical checkup at Sierra College, and no one could figure out what was wrong. And then my parents took me to a naturopathic doctor and couldn't really figure out what was wrong. And eventually my parents sent me to a major doctor in the San Francisco Bay Area. She ran a bunch of tests, couldn't figure out what was wrong. And it was just weird. It's like a relapse of the mono, and I just couldn't get over it. And I remember very early on, the outstanding symptom was that any physical exertion would make me sick. I would think I was getting better, so I'd go on a 3-mile jog, and then within an hour or two of the jog, my throat would start getting really sore, and I'd get that mono-like flu-like attack from the physical exertion. And I was in superb shape before this attack. I was every other day I was doing 1,200 push-ups and 100 pull-ups. And, I was in great shape. And then suddenly it was like night and day. Something snapped in me in February of 1988, what felt like the flu or felt like mono. And then suddenly I could no longer exercise anymore, more than a mile or two of walking a day without this relapse. And I just, it's like my system broke. Nobody could figure it out. And my mother suggested I visit an endocrinologist in Santa Ana. So I went down to UCLA a month early before school started. And I slept in the bushes and lived out of my car for a month on the UCLA campus, and regularly drove to Santa Ana to see this endocrinologist. Thought I was getting some help, but then I just had more relapses after relapses. Struggled through a year at UCLA. I was sick the whole time. It's basically bedridden about 16 hours a day. I only finished one class each quarter. And my life was just falling apart. And there was one particularly interesting thing that happened after I'd been sick for a year. My uncle in Australia sent me these articles about something called ME, or myocephalitis, whatever. That was like the Australian and the English term for chronic fatigue syndrome. I read the articles. It was like exactly what was ailing me. And I took it to my doctor at UCLA, and she said, yeah, that sounds like it. But at least finally I had a name for what was ailing me. And that was a relief. I had something I could call a chronic fatigue syndrome. Problem was, it was so wimpy. Like, who doesn't identify with being chronically fatigued? And I remember, like, almost all the people on my dorm floor just thought, I had something wrong with me in the head. That they just, thought I was pathetic because I was just in bed all the time and sick and only able to finish one class a quarter. And one of the outstanding things that I learned in my 6 years in the wilderness of chronic fatigue syndrome was that pretty much everyone my own age lacked empathy, care, and consideration for my situation, while everyone that I encountered pretty much in the second half of life displayed great empathy and great care and great consideration, even if they barely knew me. So I realized that empathy and morality is a muscle, I guess, that people develop as they go through life. But people my age didn't have it. They kind of looked at me as being a source of contagion and wanted to keep their distance. I just felt so lonely and lost. Wow, those were intense times. So when I was writing this essay in 2011 about a big lesson I've learned in life, I started with, I fear I did something wrong that precipitated my descent into chronic fatigue syndrome. See, there was this outbreak in South Lake Tahoe, and you'll see this in the documentary, I Remember Me. And there was an outbreak of chronic fatigue syndrome in South Lake Tahoe around 1984-85. So I got sick in February 88. Like, people fell ill with flu symptoms, but they didn't get better. And there are similar outbreaks in 1934 in LA County Hospital, 1948-49 in Iceland, and 1956 in Punta Gorda, Florida. And in this documentary, U.S. women's soccer player Michelle Akers says that she felt like she died on the day she got sick. And I often felt that same way. Roger Ebert writes in the Chicago Sun-Times about the documentary filmmaker who made this, Kim Snyder. She's an investigative journalist who does her own detective work, a documentary which does what the Centers for Disease Control in Atlanta shamefully failed to do, connect the dots. And there's this high school senior in the documentary, Stephen Paghetti, who was too sick to even feed himself. Few of his friends even visited him once he got sick. I wonder how he's doing now, because I identify with that. Most of my friends my own age just ignored me and said it was all in my head. So after I got sick, I had this haunting feeling that somehow I precipitated my descent into chronic fatigue syndrome. I feared that I made some bad choices, and they led me out of normal health into chronic illness. So I guess I was taking like 22, 25 units at Sierra Community College that spring semester. was working a gardening job about 20 hours a week. The previous semester, I completed 21 units with straight A's for the first time in my life. On the surface, everything seemed good. I had $25,000 in the bank. I could do 120 pull-ups, 1,400 push-ups in an hour. I might never have been that strong, but I was really pushing it. I was getting up at 4 a.m. every day to study calculus. It was my most difficult subject because previously my math background was weak. I never really exerted myself in math. And my mother would remark, if you have to work so hard at community college, what will happen to you at university? And my sister, at the December break of the end of 1987, visited us from Australia, and she slept in my room, and she said I cursed a lot in my sleep. So I'd get these regular colds and flus, and I would fast to try to recover quicker, drink huge amounts of water. I'd go back to school sick, and at times I'd lose up to 15 pounds before bouncing back. And the harder I tried, the more I pushed myself, the more I compressed myself. I compressed my neck, hunched my shoulders, and kind of collapsed my torso forward. And I remember when I first got sick, and I just couldn't figure my way out of this wilderness. I kept saying to myself, I will break through or I will break down. Either way, I'll get the love that I need. So nothing like this had happened to me before. It was constant. I was getting these constant mono-like attacks depending on how much I physically exerted myself. Like abundant rest left me feeling okay, but weak. It's like my body engine had suddenly broken overnight, and I'd gone from the best of health to horrible health just overnight in February 1988. I remember the last time in March of 1988 when I was feeling well, I went on this 3-mile run, and within a couple of hours I had a severe relapse. It was the last time I've had such a long jog. From here on, I basically lived as an invalid. And I kept trying things, and nothing really worked. But I had this idea that there were answers out there, but if I just stayed at home living with my parents, I'd never find them. Now I'm living with my parents now between 1988 and 1983, largely at their home in Newcastle, California. It's about 45 minutes drive north of Sacramento, and we had like 7 acres. It was kind of a lonely, isolated country place, and nobody at age 22, 23, 25 to be living with their parents, as a chronic invalid. And I just had this idea that I'd never get well as long as I was living at home with my parents. I tried living with friends and with my brother and sister in Australia, and didn't seem to make any difference in my health, but I knew I had to kind of break out of living at home. So what I did was I started placing all these singles ads. I knew I needed to connect. And at first, my singles ads were absolutely pathetic. I'd write, lonely, depressed, isolated, convert to Judaism, seeking human connection. And the only people who responded to those ads, of course, were as equally messed up as I was. I mean, some real Looney Tunes responded to these ads. Wow. And so I quickly learned a lesson. Don't put that vibration out into the world, because you won't like what comes back. So I rewrote the singles ad and to something like Australian made, world traveler, and I made it more positive. And so people would respond. They'd quickly find out I was housebound and lose interest. But not all women lost interest. I knew if I spoke to 10 women, that the odds were at least one would find me very attractive. And so a few women did find me very attractive, and they'd make the drive to visit me. And I started having some human connection, and really had some connection. And eventually I met a woman in Orlando, Florida, who was also chronically ill, who was Jewish. She was 11 years older than me, so I was 27 now. She was 38. and she told me she had a fantastic psychiatrist. So I left home with her in August of 1993, moved in with her in Orlando, Florida, and she took me to her psychiatrist, Daniel Goldwyn. He prescribed medication called Nardil, Nardil. And according to Wikipedia, Nardil is used primarily in the treatment of major depressive disorder. Patients with depressive symptomology characterized as atypical, non-endogenous, and/or neurotic being reported to respond particularly well to Nardil. Medications being found to be useful in patients who do not respond favorably to first and second line treatments for depression are said to be treatment resistant. In addition to being a recognized treatment for major depressive disorder, Nardil has been found in studies to be effective in treating dysthymia, bipolar depression, panic disorder, social anxiety disorder, bulimia, and post-traumatic stress disorder. So whatever it is, I felt like within a few hours I was getting stronger. And within a few weeks being on Nardil, I had the ability to start to almost lead a normal life. I was like about 60% of a normal life. And one of the side effects of Nardil was that it gives you a real sweet tooth. So I went from weighing about 125 pounds to weighing about 170 pounds in just like 2 or 3 months on Nardil. Like I regained my weight to a normal, healthy weight. I started meeting women. I moved to Los Angeles, and I had at this point about 2/3 of normal health. And I was able to pretty much lead a normal life. But I could not physically exert myself by doing more than, say, 2 or 3 miles of walking a day on a regular basis. I needed routine. I needed safety. I found that I wasn't able to handle a whole lot of new or unexpected stimuli. That would be too much for me. It would absolutely exhaust me. And I still have struggled with that a little bit. I really need like this regular set pattern that I can be highly productive. But it's kind of tough for me to deal with new and unexpected stimuli and have to, make unexpected decisions. It's for me, one of the symptoms of chronic fatigue syndrome. I eventually went off Nardil because I started going to a homeopath in the year 2000. So I was on Nardil for almost 7 years. I went to a homeopath in 1999 and had kind of mixed results with that. But it was interesting. I found it interesting I could go off Nardil and my health did not decline. So now, at least from 1994 on, if you just saw me, you would think, leading a normal life. I just had to rest a lot and beware of too much exertion and try to follow a safe, predictable routine, because unexpected stimulus and challenge was very difficult for me to process. I would spend years where I would not research chronic fatigue syndrome at all. I kind of got sick of researching it, and then I'd go years without researching it, and then I'd research it, and I'd try different supplements. And my family and friends would occasionally suggest things that I try, but nothing really made much difference until in July of 2008, I began taking Alexander technique lessons. And that enabled me to use the very limited strength and energy that I had in much more productive ways. And so I became a little stronger as I developed more conscious control of myself, was able to let go the patterns of unnecessary muscular tension, kind of tightening, holding, pulling down patterns that were literally holding me down and causing me a lot of muscular pain and inferior performance. So in January 2009, I started a 3-year Alexander Technique teacher training. And this was every day, 5 days a week, 3 hours a day. And within a couple of months of that, I went off all my psychiatric medications. I went off lithium, which kind of controlled my bipolar tendencies, clonidine, and Klonopam. I think Klonopam was anti-anxiety, and I take it at evening before going to bed with the clonidine, and it helped me sleep. But within a couple of months of this daily Alexander Technique teacher training, I was able to drop all those meds, and I slowly started getting stronger through these 3 years of Alexander Technique teacher training. Not dramatically so. It wasn't like I could then go out and run 3 miles or even walk, 5 miles every day. My system wasn't strong enough. But I was able to work like regular office jobs, 40 hours a week without problem, and even take classes in the evening after that. And then I found this wonderful herbal store, Dragon Herbs. And so they were in Beverly Hills, and very skilled, practitioners of TCM, traditional Chinese medicine. I found benefit from seeing them, found benefit from acupuncture. Again, the acupuncturist would prescribe these herbs, and I felt increased energy. Problem was I couldn't really afford the acupuncture, and I couldn't really afford the Dragon Herbs either. But when I could afford it, I felt a benefit. So I realized that traditional Chinese medicine could help my health. Now I just needed to find the money to pay for it. Because of going to my Alexander Technique teacher training for 3 years. And most of that time I didn't work a regular job because I found the training so tiring. I'd run up credit card debt over $50,000. I think maxed out at about $52,000. And let me just check the chat room. And Don't Fear says chronic fatigue syndrome can be due to low MSH, low melatonin stimulating hormone. Okay, so here are the things that really worked for me dramatically. 10 years of psychotherapy helped me kind of reduce my self-defeating behaviors and beating up on myself and isolating myself from other people. I always noticed, even when I was in good health, the more connected I felt to other people who I liked, the better I felt. So human connection for me is just so important for strength and power and health. Like being part of a community, being adopted by a family, having friends, having passions, having adrenaline. These things would always give me more energy. The Fisher Wallace device improved my sleep at night and reduced my anxiety and depression, and so that also freed up more energy. Going to 12-step programs gave me human connection, freed up more energy. It helped me to let go of beating up on myself, and I stopped kind of living my life in circles. Like prior to 12-step programs, I always felt like I was just going around and around in circles, not getting any traction with life. And then finding 12-step programs gave me energy and passion and drive to really tackle my financial situation, and to work more hours and to make more money and to try to create a prosperous life. That helped my energy because I always had these inspiring 12-step lectures to listen to. So when I feel weak or sick, I could tune into those lessons and they'd kind of calibrate me back to reality and to a healthy outlook on life. And that gave me energy. I'd periodically check Amazon.com for supplements related to chronic fatigue, and got benefit from some of those. Also, I've had a couple of years of network spinal analysis. So I found that helped me to find more energy and more strength. So those are the things that made the biggest difference for me. So number one would have been the Alexander Technique training, like every day. That really helped me improve my health. And other people who've been badly suffering from chronic fatigue syndrome and then decided to become Alexander Technique teachers through those 3 years of daily training, they they experienced significant improvement as well. So I'm not the only person with chronic fatigue syndrome who's benefited from Alexander technique training. Then the Fisher-Wallace device to sleep better at night. I got a CPAP. I did an overnight sleep study and got a CPAP, so I had improved quality of sleep. So the better I sleep, the more energy I feel. Getting out of self-defeating psychological patterns, mental patterns. Getting away from that feeling that I was just running in circles and not getting any interaction with my life. So 12-step programs helped me to get spiritually healthier, helped me get connected to other people, and gave me strength, gave me power to lead a better life. Getting very organized, getting very precise, keeping everything clean, neat, organized, practicing possession consciousness, tracking my time, tracking my money, leading an honorable life. All of these gave me strength. Being open, like idea deflection is one of the symptoms of a poverty mindset. So being open to good ideas, going back to the traditional Chinese medicine, I found that help my strength and help me to overcome chronic fatigue syndrome. Making sure that even when I couldn't exercise a lot, that I just exercised a little bit. I bought a stationary bike, and much of the time I couldn't bike over 2 miles a day without getting really ill. But so I just bike a mile a day, and that kept my muscles from completely going to flap. So yes, an honorable life, that is essential for recovery. And Shoshana says, I knew someone with chronic fatigue syndrome who was very bright, but she took on too much. So this overdoing thing, this is like a self-defeating psychological pattern that can exacerbate chronic fatigue syndrome. So getting out of these self-defeating, exhaustion patterns is really helpful for many people, including myself, who struggle with chronic fatigue syndrome. I'm going to just scroll through the chat. What type of psychotherapy was the one that you attended? It was mainly behavioral. What's that one? Albert Ellis. What's the type of psychodynamic? I did psychodynamic psychotherapy, which is the type of psychotherapy most like analysis, where you kind of recreate your attachment, early childhood attachment. You try to form healthy attachment to your therapist, and then you're able to transfer those skills more widely. Albert Ellis did rational emotive behavior therapy, which helps patients overcome irrational beliefs and unrealistic expectations. So that certainly helped me. So CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, that was most of the therapy that I did, and it was helpful. So those are the things that help me: community, connection to other people, getting out of self-defeating, self-destructive psychological patterns, so that I hated myself. Hating yourself really reduces your energy. Learning to be of service to other people, being open to new ideas, trying new supplements. If supplements supposed to be good for chronic fatigue, I'd try it once. If I thought it worked, I'd keep trying it and then I'd try going off it to see if that made any difference. Being open to traditional Chinese medicine, the Alexander technique, teacher training, just staying open to reading about new approaches and treatments for chronic fatigue syndrome has helped me. Having sources of inspiration that I could turn to, such as these recorded 12-step lectures, which I keep on my phone. So when I'm feeling tired or weak, creating jobs where I can have take rest breaks when I need to, but I can also work a lot of hours and just I can manage myself. I can work a lot of hours, but I take these breaks, and I can work, a 16-hour day if I need to. And I tried yoga, but I did a lot of damage to myself in yoga. Like a lot of people, a lot of Westerners, they go into yoga and they often do permanent damage because, yoga is really primarily meant for a different culture. And so unless you're flexible or unless you're very careful, it's very easy to damage yourself. So some really bizarre stuff in the chat room. And I've never been married, so I have no reference to a wife. I've had girlfriends, and I've had girlfriends who gave me energy, and girlfriends who kind of depleted my energy. So I found it very important to be around people with positive energy, and to stay away from people who will drain you of energy. And stay away from pursuits and hobbies that make you feel, less than, that make you feel bad about yourself, and instead concentrate on your top line behaviors, the behaviors that are furthest away from your addictions, but are positive and constructive, like honorable legal work, like volunteering, like being part of a religious community, reading, study, writing, being part of a 12-step program, taking classes, learning, educating yourself, going to readings, and going to social gatherings with other writers. For me, these are all top-line behaviors. So, Keller says that he teaches yoga. Yeah, so be very careful if you take up yoga. Be very careful. Do not push yourself. You'll see everyone else pushing themselves, and they're very likely to do permanent damage. So when it comes to yoga, if you feel pain, back the heck off. And there are some legitimate areas where you can exert yourself and go through pain barriers, but do not do that with yoga. Like I did thousands of dollars of damage to myself. Some of it just can't be repaired. I had to get help from physical therapy. It cost me a lot of money to repair the damage that I did to myself in yoga. So I loved yoga, but it's very dangerous. And let me try to think. I'm about to close up this evening, so if you have any questions, get them in right now. So Sky, do you think the 12 steps can heal chronic illnesses? I've been treating Lyme disease for almost 9 years with little success. Absolutely. In the sense that you will stop burning your energy, wasting it. You'll stop going around in circles, and your life instead will take on traction. You will stop being so isolated. Being isolated is enervating. It drains you of energy. We need other people. We need to connect with other people who are good and positive and also on the road to recovery. That will inspire us, will give us an opportunity to contribute. And when you have opportunities to contribute, you have reasons for living. And that will fill you with purpose, and being filled with reason and purpose and opportunity will increase your energy levels, your more positive outlook on life, and everything builds, just like everything spirals downward, like one bad thing leads to another. Okay, when you start volunteering, when you start connecting, when you have reason and purpose for living, and you have great opportunities, you start associating with a better crowd of people, and associating with a better crowd of people will add to your strength, inner strength, to your energy levels, and you'll just keep moving up in life, enabling you to overcome things which on your own you just couldn't overcome. Like a lot of us just get in these destructive cycles that the type of thinking that got us into these destructive cycles is not going to get us out of them. We need to stop doing outfit and start doing, being open to taking instruction. That's why many people's lives immediately improve upon entering a 12-step program, because they start doing things their way, start being open to ideas and instruction from someone else. And when you stop doing things your way, often you start reducing your chronic limiting beliefs and behaviors. So, yeah, I think chronic fatigue syndrome certainly is some kind of autoimmune disease. But even if you have this like physical autoimmune disease, if you have unhealthy, destructive mental habits and psychological habits and destructive ways of relating to people, you're going to get isolated, and that's going to make your disease all the worse. On the other hand, if you have a sunny, optimistic, healthy, happy, outlook of wanting to be of service to other people, lead a life of love and service, wanting to connect, having real friendships, having real community, having reason and purpose for your life, that will help you go so much further, even with the same, physical autoimmune limitations. Can Skype sessions suffice or only in person? Yeah, phone sessions. There are tons of great 12-step phone meetings. Just go on YouTube and just put in Al-Anon. Start listening to those talks and see if they speak to you. I don't know what addiction is most likely to kill you first, but if you have a problem with, say, sex addiction, consider a program like Sexaholics Anonymous. If you have relationship issues, consider a program like Codependence Anonymous, or Sex and Love Addicts Anonymous, which kind of looks at things more through the prism of relationships. If you have a problem with wanting to rescue or be rescued, then a program like Al-Anon can be helpful. If you have a problem eating too much or eating too little, 12-step food program will be helpful. If you have a problem with debting or not being able to track your money, then Debtors Anonymous will help. If you have a problem under earning, hiding and biting, leading a small life, then a program like Under Earners Anonymous should help. And all of these programs have a whole panoply of phone meetings. You can just phone in and you'll get so much recovery just on the phone lines. So when you hear someone with recovery, they're strong and they're clear and they have this good vibration. We all put out this force field, even just over the telephone. We all have this effect over other people. And some people have a very negative force field. I'm thinking of someone I interact with fairly regularly, and I almost always feel worse after interacting with this person. But there are a lot of good people in 12-step programs who, if you just listen to their shares, they'll make you feel better. You want to maximize your time around people to build you up and strengthen you. So yeah, there's Emotions Anonymous. Fear is a huge issue with me. Fear underlies almost all our character defects. Like Alcoholics Anonymous tackles fear. You do a fear inventory in every 12-step program. That's part of the 4th step. So every 12-step program will tackle the issue of fear. Anxiety, depression. Yeah, so check out Emotions Anonymous, check out Al-Anon. If you can afford it, check out the Fisher Wallace device. That, to me, was a tremendous benefit in helping me to sleep better and reducing my fear, my anxiety, and my depression. The drug modafinil really helped me. Modafinil. It's the basis of the TV show and the movie Limitless. Like, it really makes you want to expand. It makes you want to work. It makes you want to study. It makes you want to learn. It makes you want to be productive. And it doesn't reduce your sleep, and it doesn't have any serious side effects. So, and it just gives you a feeling of mild euphoria, which makes you a happier person. So other people like having you around. So you're better able to connect with others and deal with your problems. So modafinil made a huge difference for me. It's the only medication that I've been on in the last 9 years. So I've never played Warcraft or World of Warcraft or video games. Like since high school, I've never played video games. So yeah, anxiety. Try the Fisher-Wallace device. Try a good 12-step program. Get a sponsor. Work the 12 steps. It can make all the difference with anxiety, depression, and crippling fear. Help you get out of your own way so that you can lead an honorable life, connected to other people, to your best self, and to God. So good to talk to you guys. For now, bye-bye.